CAS Energy Coalition said in 2009 that, quote, "Time has shown that nuclear plants is essential for this nation's economic growth and development by providing reliable, affordable energy, and a new fleet of nuclear plants will be instrumental to continuing this development as well as meeting the rising electricity demand and clean air goals before us," end quote. Nuclear energy is the proper way to go instead of perpetuating the system of coal that we currently have, a system that does damage the quality of life, a system that the Affirmative Team Plan would support. The Affirmative Team Plan supports the production of coal. They want to continue the use of these coal plants. On the opposite, the negative team proposes that we should phase out these coal plants, that this is a better way to solve the harms presented through nuclear energy, which will benefit our economy, and it can provide for our electricity demands. Since my partner talked about the disadvantages in his last speech, I'm going to leave that reputation to him. In this speech, I'm going to be looking at the goal, which my partner also did talk about, and looking at the solvency of the Affirmative Team Plan, seeing whether or not they have met their burden of proof, and then we'll look to the counter plan and the argument he had there, and finally end with the solvency of the Negative Team's Plan, how we will have better quality of life if you vote for the negative team at the end of today's debate round. Now, the goal has been agreed by everybody that we need to attain human life, quality of life, we need to protect it. However, the way to meet this, as contended by the negative team, is that of clean energy. We need to invest in clean energy. The Affirmative Team's Plan, remember, does nothing to invest in clean energy. All they do is perpetuate the dirty energy that we have right now. With that, let's move on to the solvency argument of the Affirmative Team's Plan, an argument which the Affirmative Team has yet to prove. And let me remind you of that argument. It was that the Affirmative Team has not proved that every plant, every coal plant, is actually able to enact these upgrades within their system, that everyone is going to be able to do this. They provided a few examples, but they haven't provided an across-the-scale number. Now, their only response to this was looking back at their affirmative evidence, saying, well, our evidence says loopholes should be closed, we have advocacy for it, it will work. However, my response here is, sure, they had an advocate saying we need to close the loophole. The advocate never went on to provide warrants as to why, warrants as to every coal plant could actually do this, or a majority of coal plants could actually enact the Affirmative Team's upgrades. There were no warrants as to why we need to close this loophole, as to why it will do something to prevent emissions, as to why it will actually happen in the status quo. The Affirmative Team still hasn't read that evidence. All they did was reference evidence they read in their first affirmative constructive, which really wasn't adequate in proving their point. So the Affirmative Team really hasn't shown us that they can have a positive effect on air emissions at the end of today's debate round. Now with that, let's move on to the counter plan. And the counter plan was to increase nuclear loan guarantees, to increase nuclear investments, so that we can have a better energy source for our country, and at the same time we will be phasing out coal plants. Now their argument here was that our plan does not meet our burden because we're not specifically opposing their plan. We could do all the plans at the same time. Now let's just look realistically. What happens when you vote for the Affirmative Team? When you vote for the Affirmative Team, you vote for a plan that perpetuates coal plants. It doesn't invest in nuclear energy. It doesn't phase out coal plants. When you look at the Negative Team's Plan, we phase out coal plants. We invest in nuclear energy. You have a clear choice. You have a clear opposition of plans. You have to make a choice at the end of today's debate round because you have disadvantages for the Affirmative Team's Plan that you don't have if you vote for the Negative Team. So you do have a clear choice in today's debate round. With that, let's move on to the solvency argument of the negative team. Their argument here also was that we did not have advocacy for our plan. In fact, we did. I read it in my first negative constructive saying specifically that we need to invest in nuclear energy so that we can remove coal, oil, and natural gas from our system. It specifically put nuclear energy against energy from coal and specifically said that we need to invest in nuclear energy. We did have this advocacy. The second point, which was unrefuted by the Affirmative Team, is that nuclear energy is a clean source of energy. It is a clean source of energy for our country. The Affirmative Team didn't contest it. Now their final point was talking about the timeline, how it actually doesn't meet up. I have a few points to make under this. First of all, they didn't disagree with the fact that nuclear loan guarantees will lead to investment. It will lead to the building of new nuclear plants. Our evidence said that the companies are ready for this. They're just waiting for government support. The second point is that we are currently using some nuclear energy right now. We're moving towards some alternate energies, but we don't want to take the Affirmative Team's Plan to try to abandon those energies and try to fix our coal plants. What we need to do is just completely phase out those coal plants. And the final point is that of a phase out of coal and a replacement with better energy. When you look at the two plans, we are going to replace coal with an energy that is efficient, it is good for our economy, and it is good for our environment. And because of that, I urge you to choose the better option.